right back to help give parents some guidance in this morning's parenting guide is Amy Trout, a psychologist and mom herself. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So this is interesting. We're going to talk about managing conflict. Conflict, a very kind of an everyday part of life, right? I don't think anyone can escape it.
Oh, how I wish.
So when we're talking about managing conflict, where do you want to start here this morning? Are we talking about conflict between siblings, conflict between parents and children? I mean, because again, there's conflict everywhere.
Right. I mean, ideally what I was thinking of was like peaceful parenting. Like how do we be that parent that we want to be more often than not? We don't want to be reactive and responsive to our kids' internal struggles. We want to be sort of mellow and in control in a really healthy manner to model that for our kids as well.
And we've also talked about before, you know, there's some level of conflict. It has to be. You mean you have to figure out how to do conflict, you know, in a healthy way.
Right. Well, but the parent and child dynamic, you know, obviously we have more of a responsibility in that. Especially until the kids are adults themselves. So, you know, I think the really important thing to remember is remember the source of the conflict. So it's not just that, I mean, kids are different in temperament and some kids are higher need and harder to manage for different reasons, but every kiddo, when they come into the world, we're at conflict with them because they have this itching desire to grow, expand, and explore their world, which means pulling away. We have this desire to tuck them in and protect them and keep them close. And so when they're tiny, that's a pretty easy thing to manage, right? But as they grow, which I'm sure you're finding out with your little independent 2-year-old, they're trying to pull and put. How much time do we spend telling a kiddo, don't touch that, that's hot, oh, be careful, here, throw this ball instead of your plate, you know? I mean, the things that we do to try to help them understand how to channel that, that's our job. But it's not to get frustrated over the fact that they want to do those things. That is absolutely inherent in who they are, and ultimately that will lead to their survival as adults.
Well, and you say refuse to enter power struggles.
Yeah, that's the struggle right there. So if you start out with the knowledge of, okay, this isn't really about me and them. Not really. It's about them wanting freedom, wanting autonomy, wanting to explore, wanting to do it all by myself. You know, all those things that as they grow, it doesn't change. They still want it more space, more choices, more activities that they can involve themselves in. And sometimes the more we push, the more kickback we get, even if it's an activity
When you
we
hear
know
that
they
all the
enjoy.
time, if you're too strong, if you're too strict about it, it makes it worse.
Oh, sure. So they push against it more.
Not entering that power struggle, how do you not enter that?
You just start with knowing like the basic, start with just the knowledge of, okay, I want to hold them close and protect. They want to pull away, and that's really normal. Okay, so that's normal. We want safety, security, and really survival. We start out really wanting them to make it to adulthood. I mean, that's like a basic thing that we all like fear, like my kid's not going to make it there. So, and then we want to provide them, you know, with a way to be happy, to give back to the world, to kind of self-actualize and be the person that they were created to be and live out their purpose. So, the kids don't understand always where that comes from. So what we want to do is really hold their hand when needed, but let go when needed. And that's the tricky part for parents. It's a tricky part for me. Let them make choices that sometimes are really gonna, we know, we anticipate everything's against, like they may fall on their rumps, but if it's not gonna be catastrophic for them, they'll learn.
Kind of like picking your battles, which that's another common phrase that people use, and you know, I try to live by. Is this something you really, or can they benefit from maybe letting them do it on their own and not succeeding? Yeah,
health and safety issues are biggies, but even with safety issues, like sometimes, you know, a bump or two, I mean, I'm not saying be neglectful at all. I don't think most of us tend to go that route. You know, most of us tend to overprotect and overpad emotionally our kids' worlds. And sometimes being there to help them kind of just process what the bumps are like and how to kind of avoid the bumps next time are important.
Well, and you say keep channels of communication open and respectful.
Yeah, that can be hard too. You know, you want to provide like active listening, so when your kiddo's sharing with you something, really listening instead of telling them, well, you shouldn't think that way, or that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, didn't we always teach you A plus B equals C? Listen to where they're coming from. Wow, where did that thought come from? How did you hear about that? You know, really trying to get into their worlds, and that's something I say over and over and over again. It's such a hard thing to do because as parents, again, that kick in to like protect, to filter, to monitor their thoughts. You know, we want to be their like voice. There's only so much we can do, and as they grow especially and they start to pull back from that, we can't take offense. So to really listen to, oh, that's an interesting thought. Oh, that's what you want to wear to school? That's an interesting outfit. What do you think of that outfit?
And not be so judgmental, because I think if they do start to open up, you know, then they may close it off if they don't get the reaction they want.
That is such an important word. I hear that all the time from my teenagers. you're judging me. They're so judgmental. Oh, I can't stand that person. They judge. You know, judgment, such a huge thing for teens.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful to bite our tongues. And it's not ridiculous at all that you want to wear your makeup like that or whatever you're thinking.
Pick those battles.
Yeah, you really do. You really have to pick them and just let them. You really want to facilitate an environment of growth and development so that they can choose their own and they're not choosing against you.
Well, we're out of time. We didn't get to the last point, pay special attention to middle-born children, which I want to invite you back to do a whole series just on birth order, because I think it's fascinating. But as we close here, what do you want to keep in mind?
So middle kids, you just have to watch out that you don't overlook them, and that's such a sweeping generalization, I know, but really middle kids tend to be less of the squeaky wheel oftentimes in families. Sometimes it's not necessarily the middle kids, but the quieter kiddos, the ones that are sort of the easy ones. Don't only give your attention to the squeaky wheel, maybe give the squeaky wheel a little space and focus in on some of that active listening.
We're going to invite you back to, I want to do a whole section just on that, on birth order and middle children. It's interesting. So Amy, again, we always learn so much. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll send it over to Steph.
All right, can't stand to clean? Up next, how Maid Pro of Southwest Florida wants to take on all of your dirty work. But first, a look at your Fox forecast and news headlines.